Okay, thank you. It is 12:01 on September 7th, 2017. We'll call the meeting to order, and I am verifying that there is a quorum present. Okay. Can you please stand for the pledges?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
We have 6 items on our action agenda, and the first one is the swearing in of our new board members, Dr. Ana Consalvo and Dr. Michael McGinnis.
Okay, we'll do Dr. Consalvo first, if that's okay. Sure. So you will stand. And so basically I need you to read the first, which is a statement of officer, and then when you're done, I'll have you sign that, and then you will read the oath of office and sign it. Okay. Raise your right hand.
Okay. I, Dr. Ann Mary Consalvo, do solemnly swear that I have not directly or indirectly paid, offered, promised to pay, contributed, or promised to contribute any money or thing of value or promised any public office or employment for the giving or withholding of a vote in an election which I was elected or as a reward to secure my appointment or confirmation, whichever the case may be. So help me God.
You'll sign that.
I, Dr. Ann Mary Consalvo, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office of UT Tyler Innovation Academy Board Member of the state of Texas, and will try and will to the best of my ability preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States and of this state. So help me God.
Welcome to the board. Thank you. Okay, perfect. There's this. All right, we'll do Dr. McGinnis. You read your statement of officer.
I, Michael McGinnis, do solemnly swear that I have not directly or indirectly paid, offered, promised to pay, contributed, or promised to contribute any money or thing of value, or promised any public office or employment for giving or withholding of a vote at the election at which I was elected, or as a reward to secure my appointment or confirmation, whichever the case may be. So help me God.
Okay, I'm going to be signing that. And then the office.
I, Michael McGinnis, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office of the UT Tyler Innovation Academy Board Member of the state of Texas, and will do the best of my ability, and to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States and of the state. So help me God.
Okay, you will sign that. And I think she still needs your signature on the notary, and she will need a copy of your driver's license. I don't think she's got that yet. And then she will notarize both of these.
You would think I could read out loud without making much mistakes.
Okay, so not everybody knows Dr. Consalvo and Dr. McGinnis, so we would like to ask them just to briefly give us an overview of your background.
Sure. Yeah, Ana Consalvo, originally from New England, came to Texas, spent 10 years in Austin, went to UT Austin there, found my way back here, been at UT Tyler for since 2014, former English teacher, happy to be here.
McGinnis?
I guess that you're being invaded by former New Englanders. I'm originally from Connecticut, and I went to UConn, but I've been at UT Tyler about 10 years. I'm an engineering professor, and I've been primarily responsible for the dual credit experience that the Innovation Academy is kind of jumping into this year with the engineering dual credit through the Project Lead the Way partnership there with Engineering 1201, which is engineering, intro to engineering, and then Engineering 1304, which is engineering graphics. And I'm excited to be here.
Well, I want to thank both of you for agreeing to serve, and we look forward to working with you and learning as we continue to serve the Innovation Academy and support the needs, and just a great opportunity for us to hear your perspective on things and to challenge us as well on things that we're looking at. So again, thank you for your service, and look forward to getting to know each one of you.
I have met many students from the Innovation Academy over the last 2 to 3 years, and I have been so very impressed. So
Thank you. Great compliment.
Our next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, is the approval of the minutes from the July 13th, 2017 minutes. You received those via email. Are there any questions about those minutes, July 13th? If there are no questions, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make that.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Minutes have been approved. We also received the minutes for the meeting August 10th. Any questions about those minutes? No questions. We have a motion to approve the minutes from August 10th.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Do you go, Jennifer? Yep. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The next item is the request for approval of e-agreement services from Region 7.
So as a school district, we are part of the Region 7 co-op, and so within that co-op there are opportunities for them to support the district, from everything to SPED opportunities, where there are opportunities for our SPED director to consult and work with other SPED directors and make sure they're in compliance with new laws and things. Also, there's opportunities for them, teachers, to participate in targeted PD that's aligned with our school through the service center. So with that, we have to have those are called e-agreements, and we have to have permission from the board in order to continue. We're not making any changes. These are the same services that we've had in the past, to continue those services. So that the service centers we have to have an e-agreement from the board and the superintendent to continue those services each year. You have the details on those e-agreements. Any thing that I need to add?
It's right in front of you. You want to pass it around. It shows in detail what we are purchasing. Like, we're purchasing brain pop, we're purchasing co-ops, and some.
So in DMAC was one thing we talked about last board meeting, about how DMAC is our portal, basically, that we analyze student data. That's through the service center, so that e-agreement covers, or this e-agreement covers our service to be able to have our student data in DMAC. So again, these are the areas, everything from digital learning to DMAC, gifted and talented, the purchasing co-op. So there are certain entities that the service center has made agreements with, and so in order to get those benefits, you have to be a part of the purchasing co-op.
Food that we serve for breakfast. We have to be part of this co-op to be able to get the right price for the food, for food service. Excuse me.
So you can kind of see how much each one of those costs as
And
well.
that was part of the budget we approved.
Yes.
Yes.
And none of that changed. We didn't add another service. We've continued those same services over the last couple of years.
Like she was saying, they basically go out and they get the bids, and then they get the good, the good deals and the school pricing, and then we piggyback off of that and then in turn get, because we would not be able to order enough food for a vendor to give us a discount. But since we go to Region 7, they've already contracted with them that the discount applies to all districts that are part of that co-op. So we get the discount without having to buy the bulk like some school districts do.
Right.
It's definitely worth it.
Are there any other questions? I think we received information about that on the email as well.
Right.
No questions. Do we have a motion to approve the e-agreements with Region 7? Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Yep. Next item is request approval for the 16-17 budget amendments.
These amendments are just kind of cleaning up our budget. I needed to move some money around to cover some payroll costs. It was things that we had already budgeted, we just didn't have enough money in those functions. And then we also have received some revenue over the summer and we need to increase and expense those. Any questions?
And this is on the 16-17 budget.
Yes,
So we just
16-17.
kicked off the new fiscal year, September the 1st. So we are now looking at cleaning up and finishing out that 16-17 budget and looking at now moving into that 17-18 budget. So right now she actually is working with two separate budgets.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And the audit process will start roughly here next month, and we'll hopefully have the auditor in before Thanksgiving, so we may have more amendments based on her findings and if we need to move some money around again.
Yes.
And the auditor will be just looking and focusing on that 16-17 budget.
Yes.
Should finish up by November, you said?
They usually come in and they pull files and start looking at things and really digging through it. And we start sending things in like October, early November, and then she'll come in November, and then we continue to go through things in December, and then we typically have it finalized and you guys see the final product in January.
Okay.
We will approve the audit in January.
Okay.
It's a very lengthy process. A lot of documentation, especially since we keep dual books. So she's looking at our books and our codings, but then also looking at university PeopleSoft records and things as well.
Right.
But the good news is that the board can be assured this is an outside party that comes in. They have experience in working and looking at school audits. And so she comes in, an outside party, and basically audits all financial records.
Same audit company that did this last time? Okay.
Yeah, she's been the same one every year since we've started.
Okay.
And they've actually assigned us the same auditor each time. So, and she's familiar with university charters. She also does some of the other, like the Austin and UTPB and stuff too. So they're familiar with the struggles that we have of keeping dual books and
Right.
some of the other items that come with that.
Any other questions about the budget amendment? We have a motion to approve the budget amendments for the 16-17 budget.
I'll make that motion.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Request approval for IPC high school credit for 8th grade students.
Jacqueline, you want to address this on the IPC high school credit?
Yes, so this year, we started our students in Algebra 1 as 8th graders, also English 1 as 8th graders, following along with that same model, placing them in an IPC course as 8th graders, trying to push more high school courses down into the 8th grade to get more high school courses down there to allow for dual credit opportunities sooner rather than later in high school. So that
Is everybody familiar with what IPC stands for?
integrated physics and chemistry. So good call.
Just like us.
Any questions? Any other information?
Just to touch base as to why it's on the agenda is anything for high school credit that's given at the middle school does have to be approved by the board. And we've previously received approvals for all of those other subjects. And then I think the IPC decision kind of came a little later. And so we realized it wasn't on the list. And so we needed to add that.
So approval's already been made for the other
For the other
courses.
courses,
Good clarification.
We don't have any other questions. Do we have a motion to approve our high school credit? Thank you. We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Approved. Request approval for 17-18 student code of conduct.
So it is a requirement that the board approve the student code of conduct. And so each year we have it on the agenda about this time because we do make updates. One thing that I have noted on our student code of conduct, we purchase it through the Texas Charter School Association. So it's not something that is developed by us. If they develop it and we go in and make adjustments and edits to align with our system. So the basic law is in there and reads the same, and then there's areas where the Charter School Association has basically highlighted to say, now this is where you add your procedures on the campus or in the district. And so it has been updated, but I think that they just released, in fact, this week, the updated student code of conduct and the model policy. So every year, all of our policies and our student code of conduct comes from the Texas Charter School Association. We pay a yearly fee for those items. They have lawyers on staff that basically their job is just to make sure that these policies are updated and aligned with new laws, that the code of conduct is aligned with charter laws. And so it's definitely worth our investment to ensure that we are in compliant. They had they were kind of due to all the new laws this year and their role in the charter school laws, the finance law that was approved and things, kind of put them behind schedule. And they did let us know at our last regional meeting that they were behind schedule on getting out the updates to the policies and the student code of conduct. So they did recommend that boards or school districts go ahead and get approval for the code of conduct, which we again have made the edits. The only edits that we may have to come back and make is in the event any wording in the law changes, then it will have to be reflected in our new student code of conduct. So my request is for us to go ahead and approve the current edited version of the student code of conduct. And in the event when we do get the new release one, we will make comparisons. And if we need to go in and make any edits, we will bring those edits to the board for approval. It's real important that a district not be under operation without a student code of conduct in place. We have students on campus, and you have issues that come up that you need to be able to reference and know that in the event the parent questions that you can be assured that this is the current policy and practice, and that there's no gray areas for them to question that. And so our code of conduct, again, is aligned with the Texas Charter School Association and has been reviewed by the legal team.
Yes, we did get those purchased yesterday, processed, got paperwork on that, so we should have them early next week, and then we'll start getting through them, and hopefully by the November meeting, we'll have everything in place.
It sounds like, so we approve it today, and then their lawyers and stuff are combing through to make sure they have. So it sounds like mostly on their end are the likely changes.
Correct. If there's been any changes in, say, for example, a discipline issue where, well, I can tell you one example. There has been a new law passed, David's Law, regarding a child being bullied. And in the new law, it basically states specifics on how a campus has to address behaviors. That law will affect the student code of conduct. So the updated version will have that new wording in there to reflect that. And so they will actually highlight, well, oftentimes they have highlighted any changes. So when we get that new copy, they'll show this is the change, and they will even give justification of why based on the new passing of a law.
Yeah, they'll put in their like Senate bill, whatever, House bill, whatever, and then it'll say exactly what the wording is and what we're required to do from the legal side, and then we can go in and from the local side, we can then establish what our policy is based on what the law says we have to do. So there's two pieces to policy, to our policy manual, our modules, is that there's the legal side, which is this is the wording of the law and what you're required to do, and then the local side, which basically says this is how we're going to meet that law. And so the code of conduct isn't spelled out quite the same, but it's very similar in that it relays what the law says, and we then can tweak it to how we're going to meet that law.
So just to address the David's Law, we have been proactive in it, and knowing that that law was passed, and so we have invested in a Stop It app that is available to all the students in the IA. Ms. Dennis, you want to give a kind of a brief overview of what you're the administrator?
Yeah.
So the stop is, they can access it on any of their devices. Technology actually added the Stop It button to every home page for the students, so they can just click on it. They can go in there and anonymously give a tip. If they see somebody being bullied, or if they're being bullied, they can put that in there as well. Then it alerts the administrators, and if we, once we pull it up, have more questions, we can message them. It still doesn't tell us who it is, and then that student can respond anonymously again too, so we can get more information. So it's that two-way communication without them telling us who they are. You can pull it up where you can see if somebody's on there and they're just kind of playing around, and you find that. It will actually allow you to see the strand of conversations from one student, even if it's anonymous. Again, it doesn't tell you who that student is, but you can block that student from reporting if you see through your investigations that that student is not putting factual information down. So it's a great tool for students to kind of report what they're seeing, and also to report if something is happening to them.
So based on our surveys, that was one thing that parents shared, is us having a tool for students to really speak out anonymously. And that's really what the law reads, is that you can't just have a form in the office where the student has to come and get the form to be able to make a complaint, or we shouldn't expect that students have to come face to face to make a complaint. So there had to be a process for them to be able to make that take that stand, whether if it was them being bullied or someone that they observed being bullied. And so we're trying to do a better job as a district to be proactive and talking with students, addressing issues, and looking at opportunities again for them to make any type of or take a stand and make a statement regarding an incident.
But there is no access to find out who that is that's making that complaint?
Based on what I understand, is that after you engage in conversation, that trust begins to develop, and then you can actually ask the student in the conversation of the message if they would like to reveal who they are, so that you can call them in. And so the student has that right at that time to say, this is so-and-so in third grade. Yes, I would like to visit with you to further discuss. Or you can continue to engage in that conversation anonymously.
Ms. Dennis had a real good explanation in the September newsletter about it, and I've had 2 parents already come up to me and say what a great idea that is. I think that's going to be very good, very positive.
And again, a lot of the feedback that we take off the parent surveys, and we look at closely to determine, our needs as a district. And that was an area that you have kids, you have incidents, and so they're not always going to get along. And as we continue to grow, you're going to have more of those. And so we have to have ways for them to be able to feel confident that we're here to support them and to get that support. So I'm glad that you've already heard good feedback. Anyone else, any of the directors, any parents, good feedback on?
I think they're excited to have a way for their person.
Sure.
I think kids will eventually say who they are, but having first just to let you know, and then we need it at a time when it's not so discreet. I feel like it won't be a complete anonymous thing all the time.
Absolutely, it can't be at some point if you're really probably going to try to determine.
It's that person instead of getting up and walking or having to go.
Good.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, do we have a motion to approve the student code of conduct?
One more thing, the student code of conduct will be accessible for parents. It is posted on the website. Each campus director has a copy as well. So in the event decisions are being made, they're able to reference that student code of conduct with the parent, and then the parent knows that also that they have an opportunity to view that at any time from the website. Thanks, sorry.
I'll make the motion.
We have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. So now we done for the superintendent report.
All right, financial updates. Anything that you want to share?
You received them by email, but I just want to point out that these budget reflections do not show the amendments that we just approved, so you will see some functions out of balance on there. But we've received 4.7 million and we've spent 4.6 as of the end of July.
It's always good to be in the positive.
That's a good thing.
It's
That's a
better
good
to
thing.
be.
That's right.
It's definitely tight to run a budget when there's so many factors involved, you know, especially when you look at managing a small district at 3 different counties, which I've shared that before. Also, your facility needs are a big part of your budget that I think that the law now is going to support. And I think the new facilities funding will take effect 2018-19. So the law did pass for charter schools for the very first time to receive facilities funding
Oh, that's great.
on top of ADA. And so with that, I've read several different scenarios. It's going to be per student. And I have seen everything up to, I think it was $80 per student to $200 per student. So I really don't know how much that's going to be. But that doesn't mean, my initial understanding was, okay, we had to use it to build brand new facilities. And after reading deeper into the law, it's not just to build facilities. You could utilize it to update your facilities, your current facilities, or to make improvements or upkeep on your facilities. So that is good to know as well. So that will take effect 2018-19 that we will receive that funding. And you read into it too. Did you see anything there that?
No.
It could be several $100,000 added to our budget for the 18-19 school year, which is good.
There's another one that came out just yesterday about growth and money. Do you see that one? I'll forward it.
Okay. Oh yes, the growth. If a district grows, then you get additional funds. Yes.
We, this year, I think we looked at it and we should hopefully qualify because people don't have a big enough growth with the K to.
So there was advantage for us to add some of those
I think we got
grades.
it in year 2 also, or maybe it was 2 going into 3, we received that as well, but then we kind of slowed down and we didn't qualify.
So any questions, financial questions, updates? And again, if you ever have any questions on anything like that, just please send me an email or I can meet with you to discuss any of the fundings. District and campus enrollment and attendance. If you'll flip to that very back page, just wanted to provide the board information regarding our current enrollment. We are entering our 3rd week of school. And as you can see, again, Tyler has a K through 11th grade campus. There's currently 284 students on the campus. In Longview, we currently have 2nd through 11th grade with 225 students, and Palestine 2nd through 11th grade with 207 students, a total of 716 students currently in the district. So our budget was built off of 730. So we will have to look at currently where we're at. Probably within the next week, we'll really get a firmer number. And then we'll have to make probably some adjustments within the budget based on not meeting that 730 student capacity at this time.
This was as of September 1, so I don't know, they may have had some growth in the last few days that would add to that.
And as I've shared with you, that, you know, the charter, being an open enrollment charter, you have a very large geographical boundary. When you are a traditional ISD, you have a zone of students, and usually you can predict within 5 to 15 students how many students are going to enter. You base that on, okay, these are the 3 feeder schools to my middle school. They have X number of kids. Based on that, based on the current students I currently have, then this is how I can determine a budget. We have such high mobility because of the us being open enrollment and the geographical boundaries. So it's very hard to develop a budget when those parents don't have to send their school, kid to our school. There's nothing that says that if you live next door to the school, your child has to go to that school. Parents have options, school choice options. So we have to be very careful when developing a budget, but also that just makes, in my opinion, holds us to a higher standard of customer service.
Right.
Because our parents can at any time decide this is not the best fit for their child and go elsewhere. And we have to question why would they want to go elsewhere. And so we have to really monitor these numbers very closely. So most of our grades are at capacity. We do have a few grades, and those are usually our high school classes that we could enroll more students. But what we have found most of the time, if a kid is already, or a student is already in a grade, let's say 10th or 11th, they're already on a track within that high school to graduate, you're not going to see them make those changes as much in those grades.
Right.
I do think we're going to see a lot of stronger growth as we move to adding K-2, because, you know, if a kid starts in kindergarten, then they're having success, they're likely going to stay in first. And if they're likely going to stay in second. Whereas if you look at these campuses that just came in and added second grade, you know, it's tough to make that change when their child may already be established in a school and be comfortable and having success. I will tell you, I'm not sure where we're going to be next year, and this is a conversation for later, but just to give you an update on adding K-1 on the Longview and Palestine campuses. It's really going to be determined by facilities. I think the need is there. I think the desire with the community of parents is there, but again, facilities could limit us from adding those 2 grades. But we will definitely add 12th grade. So we have to consider that's a definite. We will have our first graduating class in, what is that, 18, 19? So attendance is well. We've been blessed right now. We haven't seen a lot of sickness or anything. Your attendance is lower than it usually is, though. You get both of yours. Any reason why, you think?
We have a couple of students that are out with the bug.
So you have had some things, yeah. Because you're usually at 97, so I just didn't notice that after I said that.
A lot of kids miss the first day.
Yes, because of the eclipse. And so when you only have been in school, what, 5, 10, 11, 12 days, and you have 2 kids missing the first 2 days of school, or the second and third day of school, then that can affect it. Any other questions regarding attendance, enrollment? Overall, we were very pleased, and with the numbers, we try to monitor those very closely.
Do you get as many in the K2 as you expected, or
yes,
was
I think
enrollment
so.
lower than-
No, I think that what we're trying to look at doing, and this is a question I have for the Texas Charter School Association that I'm going to try to get addressed. So let's say a kid was with us last year, and the parent has told us that their child is not coming back. Okay, but they did not withdraw them. So if they show up the first day, we were told we have to accept them. They never withdrew from our system. They are still our student, even if the parent verbally tells us that they're not coming back. Well, the issue with that is that then we hold them a spot. So if we hold them a spot and have a waiting list and then they don't show, we could have easily accepted someone into their spot and not had been closer to meeting our enrollment. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So I actually have a meeting with the director of the Charter School Association to visit with her to ask, is there a way that we can, at some point, if the parent comes to us and says they're not attending our school next year, can we open that position up?
Mm-hmm. So my daughter goes to a charter school in the Dallas area, and we have to fill out the paperwork by a certain date if we want our spot to be safe.
Okay, so we have that paperwork.
Online, and I have to go re-register her online.
Okay. Oh, so they re-register.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's
there's
our
the
enrollment
key.
days.
But what she's saying, probably in April, May, they have to go online and they re-register versus us just saying, check here if you're going to commit to coming back next year. I bet that's how they do that.
Because once they're registered, they can't go register in another school without withdrawing from your school.
Well, technically they're registered with your school until school lets out. So there's really no re-registering until you've already released school.
Could they re-register? But they're
Because
re-registering
they're
for the
registered for your
upcoming,
school until the last day of school.
but they're
They are.
registering for the upcoming school year.
Register for the upcoming school year.
That might be something, that might be it, that we have to create an online tool for them to go in and re-register. And so everybody that re-registers in, everybody that didn't re-register, those are open spots. We've got to do something because we showed our numbers to be at 760. Was it 760?
I mean, I would think that if they didn't show up to enrollment day.
But that's too late sometimes. Oh, well.
It was
But
early
that-
July this year.
The problem with that is that that's one day and you're not going to be able to hold a parent to that coming up that one day. I could have vacation, I could have everything else. But if you have a window to say, you need to go in and you need to verify during this window if your child's going to come, this is your basically tool to re-register for the next year and save your spot. I think we'd be in a better position. But in the event the parent did not submit that and they had a window and we gave their spot up, they no longer have a spot. So we're not giving their spot up. They no longer have a spot because they didn't re-register.
So your question for the association is, can you put something like that in place where it kind of pushes the issue and forces their
It
hand
cost
a
us,
little bit?
yeah,
We've
it
asked them
cost
multiple
us.
times and they told us they have to come in and actually physically withdraw from their school and physically say, I'm withdrawing, and sign paperwork saying I'm
Withdrawing.
That's what we've been told.
And that's a good example of being punished.
Oh,
by
we're
that.
punished. I mean, we're punished $100,000+
Mhm.
because we could have possibly had opening technically. We did have openings, but we saved spots because we definitely don't want to look up and 30 kids show up for one class because of, us thinking that this parent wasn't going to come back.
Well, and I will say they actually gave us kind of mixed messages because I think it was in year 2 or 3 when I was here, when we were going through enrollment, we specifically asked them, they looked at our paperwork that we give out in March that says, yes, I'm coming back, or no, I'm not. And they said, oh, as long as you're doing that, you're good. And if they say they're not coming back, then you can give up their spot. Then last year we had a unique situation. And so we asked again and said, just to clarify, like, here's our paperwork, here's what we did. And they go, oh no, they have to physically come in.
So
and
we're
actually
going
withdraw.
to work on
So-
this. So I think there's got to be a way because other charters, based on even charters in this area, they basically have a date, and if the parent does not commit on that date by that time, then that child is not enrolled. So we've got to look at something because it's costing us too much money, and it's just not fair.
Dr. Simmons, did you say we base it on 760?
No, we based it on 730, but when we looked at our numbers of how many students we had committed, it was basically at 760.
Wow.
And I cut it 30, thinking, okay, there'd be
Safe.
to be safe.
Right.
Well, then when the first week of school, my jaw dropped because I was like, oh my goodness,
Right.
and I began to explore why. How did we miss it this far? And it was because when I went to admins and directors, we had these 10 kids that said they told us they weren't coming, but they never withdrew. So we held a spot for them.
Gotcha.
And so that's when I was like, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
this is not going to work. You can't
This is
can't
also
build
where-
a budget off of that.
This is also where we discussed, I think, last time about, I met with that one school session at the summit where they said, the larger your waiting list is, the more likely you are to retain your students, because if you've got the backup waiting list,
Right.
even if 10 of them leave, you've got 20 on the waiting list. So building the waiting list would also help with that, in that the kids are less likely to leave, and then if they do leave, you've got the backup.
Right.
But I know that, Longview, maybe not Longview, but like, I think Palestine has a little bit harder time with the waiting list on the upper grades and things.
The thing about the waiting list, there's a window. It's just like anything else. There's a hot time. There's a window when parents are likely going to make that adjustment. If we have a student leave now and we have a waiting list, the likelihood of that parent withdrawing their kid out of the school they're in, because every kid's in a school unless they're homeschooled, right now and making that adjustment, they're less likely. If we're able to tell them that they have a spot in July versus right now, they're more likely to commit.
Right.
For sure. Because I mean, if my kid's doing well at the school they're at, then I'm not going to change it. You know, it's just kind of like, we're fine. We just got all the paperwork filled out. You know, I don't want to have to go and make a transition and get him have to learn new friends, new teachers, new systems. We're good. We'll try again next year. And that's oftentimes what the admins get when they follow up to say, oh, we just had a student move. And so we have a spot. I wish you would have called me a month ago. You know, we were set ready to go. Well, every kid's about $7,000. And so when you look at we're short 20 kids, then that's a big hit. So we've got to find a way, and that's my charge, to get something in writing from the Texas Charter School Association to say, how can we prevent this from happening? So the next item is the student handbook, and I'll talk about both the student handbook and the faculty staff handbook. These are not items that have to be approved by the school board. In fact, they recommend that the school board, I skipped one, start at it. I'll go back to it. They recommend that the school board do not approve the student handbook, that they just have be presented as an informational item. So both the student handbook and the faculty staff handbook are available. You got a copy, but the student handbook is online. Parents actually have to sign off saying that they reviewed the handbook. And then the staff handbook is online for the staff, and we go over that with them prior to the beginning of the school year. Basically, it's just an overview of expectations and requirements within both of those systems in those roles. We update them every year, and have found that they've been very helpful for parents. In the event they have a question, they can go to the handbook regarding everything from, you know, how are we going to look at class rank, to what are our requirements for dual credits, to what can my student wear to school, you know, attire-wise. And then the handbook, we align our handbook with university policy. So it's just one tool that the staff member can go to, knowing that it's not going to contradict what the requirements are with the university.
Yeah, well, a lot of ours is more oriented towards our age of students and the TEA regulations, where obviously the universities supersedes ours, but when it comes to things like how we do our purchasing, we have to do our purchasing differently because we code it differently. And so just the process for doing a purchase or to put in leave or anything like that is a little different for us than it is for the general university population. So it just kind of outlines a little of those things better.
And I apologize, I skipped STAR data, so I'm going to now refer to Mr. Weaver has an overview. So you received this in the parents in an email.
So you did already receive this, but I'll highlight over it and take any questions if there are any. We first pointed out that the district as a whole, it's at the bottom of the first chart, scored an 85 in index 1, a 38 in index 2, 45 in index 3, and a 45 in index 4. And the district is not eligible for distinctions, but 2 of our campuses got a distinction. Longview got 4 distinctions, and Palestine got 4 distinctions, excuse me. It says in some print below that the distinctions are established. Very interesting. It's nice. They put you in a group of 40 campuses that are quote unquote like you. They use some data and say if they have a similar demographic, similar size, things like this. And if you're in the top 25%, you can get a distinction. So it's kind of fine print there, but Palestine got an ELA rating, social studies, student progress, and closing the gaps between minority groups or economically disadvantaged population. And Longview got theirs in the ELA reading, science, student progress, and closing performance gaps. So nice accomplishment there. That's kind of icing on the cake, as it were. But then to find out kind of how you're doing compared to others, there's a small chart at the bottom just comparing to Cumberland, where you can see how the numbers compare in each of the those indexes. Index 1 was about overall student achievement, Index 2 about student growth, Index 3 about your subpopulations or economic disadvantage, and Index 4 about college readiness. The state targets, just to be clear, those are the minimal standards. Those are the minimal standards. A little advertisement for next year. Those are just, if you only meet those, you'll only get a D. You'd have to be quite a ways above those to get a C, B, or A. So we're monitoring that and setting goals to do that. On the back of this is the rest of it. A little bit of context. You don't know what those numbers mean unless you kind of look at some area schools and say, how am I doing compared to other schools? It's noted up there that we were 3rd place out of that group in Index 1, 5th in Index 2, 6th in Index 3, 3rd in Index 3, sorry, and 6th in Index 4. Just things I note in terms of Index 1, we're basically tied with the top 3 schools, White House, Glendale, and Bullard. You see those 86s, 85s. That's percentage of students passing every kind of test you give out. It's just that raw number. And the other numbers, drop down in below the 70. Index 2 was about student growth. And again, you see those that were competing against that. Subpopulations, how we work with our economically disadvantaged kids as compared to others in the area. Again, these are kind of, I think, a list of districts of where our students may be coming from to our 3 different campuses. College readiness, those are the percent of students that pass 2 or more tests at the second highest level. It's called the college readiness level. So it might be like getting a 75 on the test rather than just passing it with a 40. So that's a significant number, this college readiness. It's saying if you can score that high on your STAR test that you're statistically probably better prepared to go into college and be successful. But I did want to see if there was any questions over that.
So Mr. Weaver did mention that there is a new system, and so there is an A through F system. Based on my understanding, the campus or the district will receive an A through F rating for the 2018 school year, and then campuses will receive individual A through F ratings for the 2019 school year. Mr. Weaver is going to be attending a training at Region 7 as part of our co-op, and there will be experts there to give him an overview on how the ratings in the new system. And so, Mr. Weaver, if you'll just prepare to kind of report back to the board once you've got that training so that we can begin to get an overview of how the new ratings is going to impact us.
Absolutely. Can I say one more thing?
Sure.
I don't know if y'all met in this room before. This room is a multi-purpose room. It's a professional development room. We do the green screen here. They also do after school in here with a bunch of little kids crawling around after school doing their homework and stuff. But I wanted y'all to see this sign that came up because I think it really captures a lot of things with the IA. Too often we give children answers to remember rather than problems to solve. It's a pretty short and succinct and powerful statement. And in relation to STAR scores, there are people that can get STAR scores by giving children's answers to remember. They just don't last much longer than the STAR scores. We really, as a model, are saying we can more often give them problems to solve. That's what the PBL method, that's what's different about PBL and our approach to instruction. So sometimes that's a little harder to meet the STAR because you're not being so specific to the test. But if you can teach that way and get the STAR scores, beyond it stays for better and better purposes.
Good point. Yeah, great point. Any other questions? All right, administrative updates. We're in our 3rd week of school, and just a busy time from all 3 campuses. Thanks to the hard work of the teachers, staff members, directors. Really good, smooth start. A lot of positive feedback. Palestine had an open house earlier this week. Longview has an open house tonight, and then Tyler has one coming up the 21st. So hearing really good things from parents, and our students are adjusting and having a good time as well. we took our first group of students over to the university last Friday. So those students actually on all 3 campuses were able to receive instruction at the university. And so I think they really enjoyed the opportunity to be at the university, get a feel for the university, go to the bookstore, go to the, have lunch there at the university. So every Friday, those students will be bused in to have school on campus. And so it's kind of a big talk around campus. And so we do have the student IDs that all of our students are wearing this year, thanks to the directors. That's one thing that they put in place this year. And so our students can be recognized at any time on this on each campus, but also at the university as well. So anything else, guys, that you think I'm leaving out that we need to touch base on, you can think of? I know that was just a big thing that we had talked about eventually getting our students to the university, and we actually made it happen this year. So we're really excited about that. And so we met earlier and talked about ways to not only just look at those students, but look at even bringing in maybe a grade each month.
Which students do you choose? Like, how do you know?
The students which students come to the
It's
university?
the students that are enrolled in the dual credit chemistry, so they come over for their lecture on Friday, as well as their 3-hour lab, and then also the students that are enrolled in the dual credit pre-cal. So they spend the day in those courses.
So it's kind of a big deal for them to get to go over. And so we have a group of students, our students that are driving actually drive over to the university, and they're there. And but the feedback we got from the professors and the staff was just very positive, that our kids were just well behaved, mature. It was just a great environment for them. So they get to, actually be at the university. And so we were talking about looking at opportunities maybe to even bring over a 7th grade group on a Friday to be able to experience that, as well as maybe an 8th grade group. So we're already bringing in students. And so the cost effect, the cost wouldn't be there to have to bring in additional students, because we're utilizing a bus. So I think that would be an opportunity for them to be able to come in and experience that as well. So any other questions for me or anyone else?
So it is 12:53.
I do have one thing to add. November is our governance report, where I have to report all of you as being members of our board. And so in preparation for that, I do have a form that I'm going to need each of you to fill out. That basically, for those of you returning, you filled it out last year. It's basically your name, your address, your phone number, and then basically asks some questions about if you're registered to vote, conflicts of interest, nepotism, things like that. For those of you who are on staff at the university, on the back page where it says compensation section, on that number 1 item, you have to put your salary, because this is basically an assignment as part of your duties with the university. And so we do have to list your salary there for you. The rest of you, that does not apply as parent members. And then items 2 through 8 don't typically, where it asks you about other compensations, those aren't going to apply. So for those of you who are UT Tyler faculty, please just enter your salary there on number 1 and then answer the rest of the questions. Then what I would do is I'll go into the software and I'll actually enter all this information, and I would print out the official legal document that has all of this in typed format in the legal wording, and then I will bring it back to you in November to officially sign, and then it goes on file in a folder that we keep here, and then I go into the software and I officially submit them once you've signed them. Okay, so after we adjourn, I'm going to hand you this form. If you'll fill it out and give it back to me before you leave, and then I think I'm actually missing a couple of assignments as well.
So do we have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I'll make that motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second? I'll second. Jeff seconds. All in favor of adjourning the meeting, and it is 12:55.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Will you pass this down to Julian and Kenner and Robert?
Yes.